the meantime, I wanted to chat a little bit about HOAs. And are HOAs a bad thing? Are they a good thing? What might determine what makes a good or a bad HOA? Or should you just avoid them altogether? So what I wanted to do today, I'll go ahead and share my screen here with you. I have in front of us our website. We've actually redesigned it, and we're continuing to work on it. By the way, if you click on the podcasts now on our website, genfamproperties.com/podcast, you'll see we have all of the past episodes. So this is episode 11 we're doing today. So let me talk through a few properties on our website, which I definitely recommend watching this if you can on YouTube or someplace else. And first, let me talk about an example of a property that is not an HOA. So this is a property that we featured in the past, 5.6 acres in Park County. That's in Hartselle, Colorado. So generally, my experience is when you get a property that's not part of an HOA, the big pros of that is, number one, there are very little in the way of restrictions. There are still restrictions that the county usually provides, but there's not a ton of them. And usually you get larger acreage properties. So for example, this property is 5.6 acres. You can see that there's beautiful grass on it. And taxes are really low, only about $70 a year. And there's really not a whole lot around it. So if we zoom in here on the property, you'll see there's a hill and there's literally no neighbors at all, none, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing for someone that really just wants space. They want space to themselves. They want to be able to get off grid and not have to worry about neighbors next door and rules and restrictions and those sorts of things. The con in the vast majority of cases is that you're off grid. And so what that means is that you don't have utilities nearby. I find more often than not with HOA properties, they either have some benefits or they have utilities. So for someone that really wants to camp, they want to be able to go on a property to take an RV out there every so often, these kind of things work great. You'll notice here that under zoning for this particular property, you can have single-family homes, you can camp or use an RV for up to 2 weeks without a permit, 2 months with a permit. You can build, in this particular case, it's not here, you can build a tiny home that's like 200 or 300 square feet on this lot. You could build a cabin. You could build a single-family home that's like a few thousand feet. You could have a ranch and have horses here. You could have chickens. All sorts of things that really open up the possibilities of what you can do with the property. Now, in comparison, let's look at a property that is in an HOA. So here's another one that I think we featured last week. I can't remember whether or not we featured it or not, but this property is in Oregon. It is a property in a subdivision called Oregon Shores. Beautiful property, well-maintained roads, which is another thing on non-HOA properties. Depending upon it, if it's in a subdivision, you can get well-maintained roads, or at least decently maintained roads. And there are plenty of properties, though, that are off-grid when you're dealing with non-HOA type properties. So you got to be really careful to know what you're getting into. Now, in this case, with this one, they have water because the HOA is providing water. So there's a benefit there. The other thing is that the location of a lot of HOAs tend to be really awesome. So, for example, this property, you can see here there are houses around, right? Because there's water that goes through this whole thing. So you do have some neighbors here. And look at the location. Here's the lake. Do a measurement here. This property is about 2,000 feet from the lake. So you're like half a mile to the lake. That's it. Half a mile. You could walk down there. Super duper easy. You can see that here's a major highway. Road access is good. Again, you get the water. The con is that the properties are smaller because you start having all these benefits and you have the restrictions. So for example, in this case, 1,200 square foot minimum, and you can have a stick-built or manufactured home. You could also have a mobile home, but you can't have like a tiny home. You couldn't have a 400-foot cabin. You do get the water that the HOA provides. Power lines are nearby. They run right by the property. So that's some of the pros when you have a HOA type property. You get some of the best locations. But if you want space and you want to be able to get away, the non-HOA properties are probably a better fit for you. So depending on what you're looking for, there are some exceptions to that. This one here, I think we may have looked at in the past. This is a 1/4 acre lot that is not in an HOA. Interesting history of this particular property in this area. This is in a subdivision called White Mountain Lake. This property is less than a 1/4 mile from the lake. So you can see here, again, there's quite a few houses. There's a water line that runs through here on Bear Meadow Drive, and there's houses around. So you do have neighbors near you, and this is obviously a smaller lot, but you're near a lake, and you have water, and you have power, and it's not part of an HOA. However, it was at one time. The HOA actually went defunct. And so now the county manages this, but there's no HOA dues. There's none of the costs that can come with the HOA, which is another major con for a lot of people, is that you have HOAs with additional costs. Some can be really cheap, like $200 a year, $100 a year. Some might be more expensive, $350, $400 a year. We sold one property that's like $1,000 a year in HOA dues, which those we tend to avoid at all costs, because it's a lot of money that goes towards HOAs. So that's another con that I'd kind of knock HOAs with. So it is possible that you can find a lot with power and water that's not part of an HOA, although my experience is that those are very far and few between if you want to get it for a small price. Like this lot, we're only selling it for like $4,000. So if you bought a similar lot in an area just 20 minutes away, it's going for like 50 or 60 grand. So with an HOA. So you really have to kind of know your stuff. And certainly if you have questions about any of our properties, let us know.